Today we're going to learn how to construct a two-way table. We've got three goals today. Number one is how do we actually make a table? Then once we have a table, how do we determine relative frequencies, both by row and also by column? So if that sounds confusing, that's fine, but hopefully by the end of this lesson, it won't. The first problem is actually part of your homework. It's page 693. And it tells us of customers in a restaurant. And they told us right off the bat that there's 100 customers. Well, that total should go right here in the bottom right-hand corner. They're telling us how many total customers there are. Next information they give us is they say that out of 30 customers that like rice, 20 of them like chicken. So they've told us two things there. They've told us, number one, 30 people like rice. So here's the rice row. So at the end of the rice row, in the total, we're going to say there's 30 people that like rice. And they said that of those 30 people, 20 of them like chicken. Okay? What else do they tell us? They also said there's 60 customers that like chicken. So if this is the chicken column, we know there's a total of 60 people that like chicken. Now, the problem is that's all the information they gave us. So how can we finish this table? Well, luckily, what we know about a two-way table is I need to add these two columns to get this total, these two rows, and then I'm going to add the columns, okay? I'm going to add these two to get this total down here. So I know that 20 and plus some random number here has got to equal 60, and we know that would be 40. I know that 20 plus some number here in this box is going to equal 30. So 20 plus 10 equals 30. So we're doing pretty good. I also know that this total of 30 right here plus this number has to equal 100. So we know that's 70. And if I look at this row, this 60 plus whatever goes in this has to equal 100 as well. So that would be 40. Now we've got everything filled in except one, and we can either use the row or the column. And here we'll say 10 plus something equals 40, so we know that has to be 30. So there we have a two-way table all filled in. Remember, the key is the rows have to add up to equal this total. This row, these two have to add up to this total. And then for the columns, this column, these two have to add up to this total. And in this column, these two have to add up to that total. So that's what you need to remember about filling in two-way tables. Also, remember that they don't have to give you all the information, but they will give you enough to be able to fill it all out. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is relative frequencies. And if you recognize, this is actually number 3 in your homework on page 693. It says to find and interpret relative frequencies by rows. All right, so what that means is we're going to ignore these column totals for right now, and we're only going to focus on rows. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to take ratios of each value, okay, so each value to the total of that row. So what would the total in this row be? Well, remember what we did when we just filled out the two-way table. We added each item in the row to get the total. So 59 plus 25 is going to equal 84. Now it's saying to write a ratio of each value to the total of that row. That means I'm going to write 59 over 84 because 84 is the total of that row. And 59 divided by 84 is going to be 0.70. And then I do the same thing for 25. I'm going to say 25, that value over the total, 84, and I'm going to get 0.30. Okay? And then I'm going to do the next row. What's the total in this row? I have 59 plus 41, and that's going to equal exactly 100. So now, all of these ratios, this is going to be 59 over 100, which is nice and easy to figure out, 0.59. And then I have 41 over 100, which is also easy, and that's 0.41. So my relative frequencies are these numbers right here. All right, and what those are telling you is how often this occurs. So if we look at this two-way table, we can see that when it talks about how students message on a daily basis, we can see that 70 or 0.7% of 7th graders do text messages. Okay, we see that right here. Right here, we see that 30% of 7th graders use instant messenger. Here we see that 59% of 8th graders use text message and 41% use instant message. So what we're able to do with the two-way table is simply break data down in a way that's usable. The next way we're going to do this is we're going to do a two-way table by row. But they haven't given us as much help. All of our data is going to be in this Venn diagram here. But let's set up our data. So we've got people who jog and then people who do aerobics. So then there's going to be people who jog and people who don't jog, and then people who do aerobics and people who don't do aerobics. So let's go ahead and say aerobics here. Hope I didn't spell that wrong. And then let's go with no aerobics. And then over here, we're going to have people that jog and people that do not jog. Okay? And then, of course, these are going to be the totals. And these will be totals. All right? Now we've got to get our information. So let's look at this Venn diagram. All right? Well, how many people just jog? All right? If we have, how many people just jog? They only jog. Well, that would be like, it looks like, let me figure this out. So if you are going to jog, all right, and not do aerobics, there is a total of 24 people here. So 24 people jog and don't do aerobics. So jog, no aerobics is 24. Okay? Now, what about people who jog and do aerobics? Okay? So aerobics and jogging, that would be this middle section or this overlap. That would be 8 people. Now, how many people do aerobics and do not jog? All right, so that would be this number right here, 13. They do not jog and they do aerobics. And then how many people don't do anything? Well, if you're not careful, you might miss it. But notice down here in the corner is the number 5. So that is how many people do not jog and do not do aerobics, so that is 5. Okay, and this is kind of a bad 13. Let me redo it. All right, so now we've created our two-way table. We've used the Venn diagram to come up with our information. Now let's come up with our totals. So we have 8 plus 13, which is 21. 8 and 13. We have 24 and 5, which makes 29. And then we have 8 and 24, which equals 32. And here we have 13 and 5, which equals 18. And then together, this should equal 50. Notice how 21 and 29 together equals 50, but also 32 and 18 equals 50. So that's really good. Now we simply do the relative frequencies, but we have to look back at the question. It said, to find and interpret relative frequencies by column. This is very important because we can only do one or the other. So that means we're going to be looking at columns. So I'm going to take the total of 32 right here, and I'm going to put 8 over 32, and I'm going to put 24 over 32. And 8 over 32 is going to be equal to 0.25, and 24 over 32 is going to be equal to 0.75. And over here, my total is 18, so I'm going to do 13 over 18 and 5 over 18. 13 over 18 equals 0.72, and 5 over 18 equals 0.28. So we figured out all of our relative frequencies by column. So, what did we determine? 25% of the people jog and do aerobics. 75% of people jog but do not do aerobics. 72% of the people do aerobics but do not jog. And 28% of the people do not jog and do not do aerobics. Hopefully that has been helpful. We have learned how to fill in a two-way table, and we have learned how to determine relative frequencies by row and also by column. Hopefully that helps. This video is dedicated to Emily Ware, who gave me a lot of hassle for not having it ready last night. Emily, I hope you enjoy it.